Part 9, The Emergence and Development of Man. We convey to you a part of the sayings from spiritual energies with the topic, The Emergence and Development of Man, by Aljibisa Stojanovic, who transferred the sayings received in deep meditation into the book, Man, Origin and Future. The ancestor of man and all primates was created by the energy of Christ, about 5 million years ago. At that time, the idea of Christ's energy was to create a being on earth with greater intellectual capabilities than the others that were created on earth, not counting the dolphins that were brought to earth as a developed species. However, the development of this human ancestor followed a crooked line. It began to develop in the direction of 2 to 3 groups of monkeys whose development did not promise any significant progress. Therefore, Christ's energy made a genetic change from the remaining specimens of the human ancestor, which had not yet begun to develop in the direction of some of the monkeys, which was supposed to turn these specimens in the direction of a significantly higher development of intelligence. This gave positive results so that these beings began to develop more properly with increased development of intelligence and creativity, which encouraged Christ's energy to further support and help the development of these beings in a gentle way. However, due to changes in climate and other living conditions, a large number of these human ancestors ceased to exist or degenerated into beings similar to monkey ancestors, so that only a small number of people remained on the path that was set for them. This, however, forced Christ's energy to take much more care of that small group of human ancestors so that the species would not be extinguished. The surest way was to continue with the mutations necessary to return people to the right path of development, the one conceived by the energy of Christ. During human history, there were several of these mutations, 2 of which are the most important. One of them arose due to the deviation of the human ancestor from the predicted development in the sense of exclusive life on the tree, which would have significantly reduced the developmental possibilities of man, because the life on the tree would have limited, prevented, made impossible the direction that was envisioned. Therefore, in order to stop this undesirable direction of development, Christ's energy made some changes in the genes of people so that they got more developed rear legs than the front ones, which greatly hindered climbing, and made it easier to move on the ground. In addition, there was also a genetic change in the choice of type of food, so that man began to prefer roots, bugs, and small animals, rather than food that grows on trees. This, already after several generations of people who experienced these genetic changes, led to the orientation to life on the ground, instead of the previous one on the tree. The second biggest change was made much later, and after it only 2 more important changes appeared, as the last that man suffered. It related to people's way of thinking, by making corrections in the human aura, whereby the aura was trained to receive some information that it was not capable of, which enabled white bioenergy to gain much greater knowledge, giving it the chance to think better, to make better conclusions, and that in this way a person has become more intelligent and creative. The last of these mutations took place several 100,000 years ago. Protected by the paternal attention of Christ's energy, the human ancestors developed gradually and safely, reaching a relatively high level of development 144,000 years ago, which enabled the human species to enter into competition with the wild boar and dolphin for the choice to raise a generation of luminous bodies. Many will be amazed by the fact that a wild boar made it to this shortlist. However, it is necessary to know that the wild boar did not originate on the soil of the planet Earth, but was brought to the planet as a ready-made species, but gradually began to branch, creating a large number of subspecies, whose intelligence did not progress. On the contrary, degeneration has occurred in many. The wild boar represented a distant descendant of a species brought to the planet 144,000 years ago, which was the only branch whose intelligence had advanced. Thus, the ancestor of today's man found himself in competition between two newcomers to the planet whose intelligence had already experienced a relatively high level of development in other places. This was precisely one of the basic reasons why Christ's energy chose the human species as the bearer of the development of luminous bodies, because it originated and was created on the planet Earth and developed from the very beginning under the conditions that exist on the planet, and therefore represented at the start the most suitable bearer, with the fact that, of course, the conditions and way of life of primitive people, as well as the problems they solved every day, represented a real blessing that would enable the rapid development of luminous bodies. This, the final choice of the human race, marked its dizzying development, which, of course, was barely noticeable at first, but the acceleration would gradually become greater. It is, therefore, a complete story about the development of man from a being created by Christ's energy especially for the planet Earth, until today. This would be a part of the sayings from Ljubisa Stojanović's book, Man, Origin and Future, and if you are interested in the whole sayings, it is best to order the book yourself via the internet from an authorized printer in Serbia. The Treasury of Sacred Knowledge thanks you for your interest, and sends you a lot of spiritual patience and love.